Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cathryn Ricker, and I am a middle school English teacher currently serving as Executive Vice President of the American Federation of Teachers. And it is my pleasure to be on this panel and talk a little bit about my contract negotiation experience in St. Paul, Minnesota, where I was local president before I was elected this summer. I'm actually going to, I'm gonna lead with my fireworks. Because often when I do this presentation in front of teachers, I know exactly where I get the sort of oohs and ahs and the hair on the back of their neck standing up. So I'm just going to feed that to you first, and then I'll walk you back from there. So yes, the rumors are true. We did invite the community into our negotiation sessions to watch us negotiate. And yes, we did actually invite the community to the table to help us negotiate. And yes, we actually invited the community to help us prioritize our negotiation issues simultaneously with our members. And thank you. So we didn't start there. So I'll back you up about 5 or 6 years. When I first got elected in 2005 to be local president, and I thought, you know, it was the beginning, and for me anyway, of the white noise of the teacher bashing and the teacher union bashing really starting to sort of elevate, right? I just really felt like I couldn't close my door and have it shut out anymore to my classroom. And so, long story short, I decided, like, if I ran for president of our union, and our members elected a national board certified teacher to be president of the union, like, that will do it, right? They'll see that we believe in teaching quality, and they will see that and it didn't. So, so that experiment failed, but there I was, president of our union. So I wanted to do something productive. And so a number of years ago, we were successful at negotiating strong teaching quality measures in our contract. Peer assistance and review. We use the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act money to institute a peer assistance and review program, which in my humble opinion was the best use of that money. We won site and community-based school restructuring. So no more third-party managers coming in to restructure a low-performing school. Those restructuring decisions were going to be made by that school community, right? Thank you. We designed our own alternative teacher licensure program to diversify, with 2 goals in mind. We were going to diversify the teaching profession, and we were going to fill hard-to-staff license areas. Those were our 2 goals. We don't think small at the St. Paul Federation of Teachers, right? And yet, so we did all of these things, and yet we were still getting hammered by the dominant narrative, right? We were still getting attacked. Teachers and their unions, we realized that no matter what we did, one of the most important things we were going to have to do was tell our own story. We were at a crossroads, right? We could keep doing this great stuff and have nobody know about it, and everybody keep trying to tell our story for us, or we could do our stuff in community and make sure we were moving a community-based agenda at the same time. So we started with inviting people to watch us negotiate. So in 2000, in 2009, and in 2011, we started inviting the community to watch us negotiate. Now, Minnesota already has a state law that makes public employee negotiations public meetings. So they actually could have come to watch us whether we wanted them to or not. But we said, you know what, why not welcome them? Why not say, of course you can come watch us negotiate? And what we found was that the people who came to watch us negotiate ended up gaining trust in us, not losing trust in us. I mean, I had a member at the end of our first round of negotiations, the first year we did it, and we finished negotiations, we came to a contract. He even stood up in a meeting and said, I came to prove that you guys weren't doing your jobs at the table, right? And that you were just sort of slacking off or maybe selling us out or whatever. And he said, and what I learned is you're fighting relentlessly for us at the table. Like, so we had members and community members and parents and even students at times, they would gain trust in us. And they would come to us with additional ideas. So we finished doing that, and people immediately started coming to us like, so next round of negotiations, what are we going to ask for? And I was like, great, our contract is becoming this community agreement we have for meeting the needs of kids and supporting a high-quality teaching staff at the same time. And so after doing that, we started, in 2011, we started making sure that the contract proposals we had a parent or a student or community member or maybe all three at the table negotiating with us to tell their rationale, like what their self-interest in this language was. So when we talked about, whether it was talking about negotiating leave, talking about negotiating class size, talking about negotiating special education caseloads, we had parents right there explaining what it meant to them. And so we finished the 2011 contract negotiations, and we felt really good about it. And at the same time, I was thinking, so where do you go next? Where do we go next from this? And I actually had the opportunity to represent Randy Weingarten on a trip to Finland, which I had heard so much about, and being of Finnish descent from Minnesota, it was like a little bit, like visiting home when I got there. So I learned about this Finnish educational system, and I was like, we could negotiate these things. We don't have to wait for the state of Minnesota to put them into law. We don't have to wait for the federal government to put this into law. We could negotiate this stuff. So I come home, I walk into one of our organizers' office, and I was like, I have an idea. Before we ask members what we want them to prioritize in contract negotiations, what if we ask parents and community members first? And Leah, my organizer, was like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. And I said, well, all these people are having conversations about us, right? It's not like if we pretend they're not talking about teacher seniority, they won't really be talking about teacher seniority, right? It's just that we're never at the table talking about it with them. And people keep telling us, parents want this and parents want that. What if we asked parents ourselves? And so we built this structure where we were going to have 2 study groups or kind of book clubs. We were going to base one study group on the book Teaching 2030, which is a book put together by Barnett Berry's Center for Teaching Quality group, where he had about a dozen teachers visioning the future of the teaching profession. And we would have another book group using sort of a mentor text of Alfie Kohn's The Schools Our Children Deserve. And that would look at the learning profession. Right? And so we had 3 overarching questions, right? And this is the English teacher and me building this out. So a different union leader, it might look very different. But so I had 3 big questions. The study groups, which were made up of about 24 people total, equal numbers of parents, community members, and rank and file members who had not necessarily negotiated before, which was a good thing. And we asked them 3 big questions. The big one, what are the schools St. Paul children deserve? Second one, who are the teachers St. Paul children deserve? And then the third one was, and what is the profession those teachers deserve? And we asked the study groups to think on those things, meet. They were welcome to bring in all the other materials they had. If they saw a great article or a blog post or wanted to bring in another book to share with people, they were encouraged to bring in diverse voices. They were encouraged to ask these questions of their own circles of influence. And then we held listening sessions, broader listening sessions hosted by these book club participants, where we were asking the same questions of a broader group of people. In fact, the second listening session, we brought students in to make sure that we were hearing them. And I also did a special listening session just with the future educators of St. Paul at Como Park Senior High, which is about 28 or 30 students who are studying, exploring a career in teaching. And I will tell you, there is nothing more powerful than sitting in a group of high school students who are exploring a career in teaching and then asking them, what is the future career you deserve? But then in present time, asking them, who is the teacher you deserve? Right? And so we spent from November to April amassing this interest. At the same time, we did a survey of our members with some of the themes that started to come out to see what really struck our members as a priority for them. And then in April, the study groups distilled all of this information and came up with 7 priorities, brought them to our executive board, and presented them to our executive board, and asked us to adopt these as our negotiating priorities for the 2013-15 contract cycle. And we discussed it, we went back and forth, made sure we understood what they were asking for. At the end of the day, our executive board adopted these 7 priorities, And then I turned, and the negotiating teams I had assembled by then, we turned and directed our negotiating team to negotiate from these 7 priorities. And these 7 priorities included reasonable, dependable class sizes. They included culturally relevant teaching. They included high-quality professional development. They included increased access to our preschool program. They included I used to be able to rattle all 7 of them off much easier than right now. But they're all on spft.org still, if you wanted to see them. And so we turn, and so sure enough, and don't get me wrong, we still had a few of those I's to dot and T's to cross too. So we had one about, we did have contract language, for example, where we were expecting the district to have all of the parking lots snow plowed by 6 a.m. at our 7:30 start schools. So, we certainly did still have, a few things that had agitated us in between the last round of contract negotiations we were trying to settle. But of the 29 proposals, we presented them on March 2nd, and the district came back to us on March 23rd and said they were going to refuse to negotiate 23 of them because they were not mandatory subjects of bargaining, because they were the ones that came from our community-based discussion. And they're right. In Minnesota, they are permissive subjects of bargaining, but they are not mandatory subjects of bargaining. And so we said on May 23rd, you are going to negotiate these. We are going to make progress on these issues, and we're going to keep at it. And so the community built these proposals with us, and so we built a contract campaign together as well. And so the community came and watched us negotiate. The community saw the district turn us down on those 23 proposals that had been built out of the 7 priorities that came out of our structure. And then in September, when the district closed negotiations, so there's only one way you can close negotiations from the public in the state of Minnesota, and that is by calling for a mediator to intervene. And so the district closed negotiations, and so we started door knocking to the community and getting them to sign a petition, sharing our contract language in 4 different languages with the community so they understood what we were working for, had a petition for folks to sign on to please negotiate these priorities. We started putting up lawn signs, which later became snowbank signs. St. Paul kids deserve, and then there was a big blank space where you took a big Sharpie and you put in your own priority for your own family, universal pre-K or small class sizes or art, music, and language or, something like that. And these started popping up all over the place. So we worked together to create these priorities. January 21st, we did a huge district-wide walk-in, had about 2,500 people to participate. Essentially, a walk-in was at the beginning of the school day. We gathered up teachers and parents and students, gathered around the flagpole, rallied for our contract priorities at every school. Some people had bands, some people had streamers, moved into the school. It got covered, called for a strike vote February 12th, and had a 24-hour negotiation session February 20th that resulted in progress in all 29 proposals that we had presented that very first day. And I will just say, we wouldn't have done it had we done it the old-fashioned way. We only did this because we joined in partnership with the community. We took their concerns seriously. We listened to them, and they, in turn, their trust grew in us. So thank you. Thanks.